On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk HTSA takeaways. It doesn't have to be Wi-Fi, and Snap working with all the buying groups. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 325, Another New Standard.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Sure. Sound extraordinary.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matthew Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, I'm pleased to be joined by two of my good friends. First, we have Katie McGregor-Bennett. She is the CEO and founder of KMB Communications. How you doing, Katie?
I'm doing great. Cannot complain.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. Then we have Avi Rosenthal. He is a partner at Bluesav. How you doing, Avi?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on this week.
Thank you for being here. I am going to do my best today to not bring up NAB at all. Even though I was, Avi, I was literally Sunday morning, I'm at church trying to get stuff ready, and I'm like reading Twitter and checking news. I'm like, ooh, Tim, go see this. Because I conveniently forgot that he was 3 hours behind me. Conveniently. Scary thing is, he got back to me.
Good
All right.
morning.
Exactly. Let's kick this off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. Custom integrators talk about plans for post-pandemic growth at the HTSA spring event. CE Pro asked some integrators out in the lobby how they're going to build on the growth they've experienced throughout the pandemic, etc. So you can in theory read through this, but it's all in a video, which I'm not going to complain about. But I hate watching videos. At least give me like bullet points, please. Gosh. But it's what they wanted to do. I get it. No problem. Katie, when you see this, there were some really interesting points coming out of the video, out of those interviews, specifically that obviously they're going to continue to build on networking, which shocks literally no one. But the part that I found kind of interesting was that they're focusing on or starting to focus on project scope that is coming to them to at least provide input, if not directly quote on, that they've never really seen in the past. And they don't mention what that is completely, but we can allude to what a lot of that stuff is as far as, again, all those top trends that are kicking off right now. Is that going to become the go-to that we will finally kind of have that dream of being the go-to person for anything that's tech in the home is going to go through an actual integrator? Or is this a one-off, or maybe not a one-off, but is this just based on the clientele that the majority of, for example, in this case, HTSA member companies deal with? They're dealing with that higher echelon. Is that why that's coming to term, or is this going to hit the industry broad?
I think it's going to hit the industry broad. I think it already is hitting, and I think that it actually has for some time. We're finally getting to a point where we're talking about it in a more broad brush strokes manner. You and I have talked about this a million times. And one of the things I love to review at trade shows about is, remember that interview we did with Aiheji like 10 years ago, and you were like, what do you call them? And the point of me not having you getting to review about that one more time, but way back in the day, like 10 plus years ago, their tagline was own the network, own the home. And it was a really hard concept to get through to the industry and to the consumer on the other side of what exactly does that mean. And it was really just forecasting what the future was going to hold, which is the critical nature of the network in the modern residence and anymore. I mean, I'm not talking about design modern. I'm talking about just the homes we live in today. Just like you wouldn't not have electrical or plumbing, you also really don't have a home without some sort of an internet backbone. And now that there's more work being done from home, we were talking about this before we started recording, even customer service is being done from the bed. Not here, but elsewhere, the network that has to be in that, okay, maybe sometimes, but the network that has to be there to support the structure of the home, it really does need to be more and more robust. And it's a fact of life. it's one that I'm rejoicing and celebrating on behalf of my clients, but also finally for our industry, getting the recognition that we deserve and the importance of that network being properly structured, properly secured, and properly supported. And I think, now is the time for us to go, hey, hallelujah, finally, now we have a consumer audience that really understands and hopefully respects the value of the work that the integration community does and that the manufacturing community brings to the table. Off the shelf is no longer good enough, and it really needs to be questioned and scrutinized. And I think that's really what this message is all about. And I think, the integration community really is finding their stride and finding new opportunities to expand their businesses and really be more of an important role. And again, it comes back to that. Now they own the network, they can own the home.
Yeah, that's a good point. Avi, one of the things that always comes to mind when I see this, or when I see this trend, right, of people talking about how, they're expanding their scope and they're touching more and more things. And I respect that and I like that, but I also get concerned with that. There's a tendency to become kind of that jack of all trades, which in theory is good, is not always as preferred as being, hyper focused on things. When we as an integration community continue to be kind of bombarded with questions about everything from the theater, the golf simulator, the outdoor audio, the security, the cameras, the smart toilet, the smart dishwasher, the leak sensors on the radon in the crawl space, like we can literally, outside of maybe insulation and framing, maybe shingles, unless you're using smart tile, for solar, like we can literally be as much, if not almost more than the GC from an involvement standpoint. Long term, does that benefit most integration companies, or does that become I don't want to say it's a hindrance,
maybe a liability?
Yeah.
So maybe a lot. So first of all, I think it's great for the integration community because I completely agree with Katie when she talks about how we now own the network. Owning the network is not just about the network, but every single device that's connected to it. Mm-hmm. So if you're not looking at things like battery backup, right, charging vehicles, solar panels, conversion generators, if you're not intimately involved with a lot of these systems, your builder partners and your homeowners are going to start to look for somebody who is. I myself have started consulting with a number of builders. During the building boom, I was approached by not only some of my previous builders from like way back in the day, but some builders found me at a trade show and online as well and brought me in as their technology consultant. Now, I'm not becoming an integrator again. I'm too old to be up in attics pulling wire. I get it. It's okay. I own it. It's all right. But the knowledge base in having to understand how everything goes together and the difference between a strong network and a weak network and what that means to a homeowner when they move in and they want to connect all of these smart devices is very, very important. And it all comes back to the reputation of the person building the house. So if we are not the GC, which certainly we're not building the sticks and the roofs and the walls and all of that, what we're putting behind all of that and what we're establishing to run everything once it's done is just as important as making sure the roof doesn't leak. Mm-hmm. And I think that the good integrators are going to embrace that. They're going to embrace the position that they're being placed in. It's sort of like, we always put the architects up on this pedestal, right? They were always, we have to go talk to the architect. Let them put us on the same pedestal. Let us put on the same pedestal as the architect. You're going to design the structure. You're going to design the HVAC system and the way that the plumbing drains and all of that. At the same time, you need an expert to know how everything goes together. And again, what Katie mentioned, not only is it positive for the integrator, but proof of that is that the manufacturers are now stepping up. Very large networking hardware companies are recognizing the potential within the integration business, and they're coming to the integrators to say, hey, we want to be a part of what you're installing. You are now the specifier of the equipment going into this home, and we want to talk to you. The same way we used to curry favor with the architects and the lighting designers when it came to technology, the networking hardware manufacturers are going to curry favor with the integrators, which I don't want to get too ahead of your stories, but you have a story in there about buying groups that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Why is that company currying favor with all 4 buying groups? Because they know at the end of the day, the integrator is the designer, is the person specifying what's going into the home. Own the network, own the home, own the integrator, get the sales.
Thanks for watching the first segment of this week's episode. To catch the entire show, please click the link below or visit avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv.